Welcome to In the Studio. We're talking about what makes you happy, and this is session number 3. If you haven't watched session 1 or 2, I recommend you stop now, go to the links below, and watch session number 2 at least before you continue further, because session number 2 was where I gave you your assignment, and today we're talking about your assignment. So I gave you the assignment of making a list of everything that makes you happy in a specific way, and right now we're going to talk about that. We talked about me in the studio and how this was crammed full of stuff, and it was stuff that everybody else thought I should have. When you say you're building a studio, people automatically assume you're going to fill it with things that they would love to fill theirs with, and that's not right or wrong. It's just not me. So when I made my list, we're going to go off of my list, and I turned around and I was looking at the things in my studio and now my home. I realized that I allowed other people's happiness, other people's talents and treasures and everything that they held dear to infiltrate into what I held dear. We don't have a lot of time in this world. We really don't. Our days are literally full to the brim of things that we have to do. So when it comes to our actual time of when we get to choose something we do, I found that I was choosing things more to keep other people happy and to make sure that other people weren't upset with me than I was in doing what made me happy. And in the first video, I think I mentioned that writing and reading make me happy. Knitting doesn't make me happy. Knitting was something that I did when I was passing the time at work or in the hot summers that we had down in Fresno. I'm from Fresno, and knitting was something that I did when I was at work between the phone calls. I answered phones for 911, and you may have 5-10 minutes of downtime, and at 3 in the morning you want to be doing something because you don't want to fall asleep. Falling asleep would be a really bad thing, being 911, although I do know people that could do it, but quite frankly, I was not one of those. So anyways, I made the list last week, and I turned around and I looked at my walls and in all of the containers, and it became crystal clear to me what I was doing, that I was keeping everything and I was doing crafts and hobbies that everybody else wanted me to do. And it was fun because I got to be with that person, but it wasn't my craft or hobby that made me ecstatic to wake up in the morning, right? It was, oh, I get to knit that shawl again. No, I wanted to do something that was, oh, I get to write that piece again. Or, oh, I get to read that book. Or I get to walk through the garden and smell the flowers. If you haven't seen my Instagram page or the Facebook page, I post a lot of videos of what I do. I am a permaculturist certified, and I actually am creating a food forest. So that is a passion of mine. That is something that I love to do, although it's not something that I need every single plant for. It's something that brings me joy. So what brings you joy? If you have a ton of baking stuff in your home, but you don't like to bake, why do you have baking stuff? Just keep what you need and get rid of the rest. If you don't like social media, why are you on social media? That's a good question to ask. If you like weaving, then why don't you weave? Is it because you're too busy taking care of dusting everything in your home of all the knickknacks that you don't necessarily want, but everybody gave you? So this is where I had some really tough decisions to make. I had under the desk a big box of books that I was supposed to read, or that somebody wanted me to read, and I had to come to the conclusion, and I just mailed them this morning, that I'm not going to have the time to read them. If I want to write and I want to be passionate about what I'm doing, and I believe that God gave me this joy to use for others' pleasures, then I need to get rid of the books that I don't read. So I packaged them up with a beautiful card explaining that I was not going to have the time, and that I was returning them to him, and that I was sorry that I didn't get to them. But you have to stand firm and Don't say, okay, because when I called and said, hey, what do you want me to do with these machines that I had, I was met with the, oh, well, you should save them. You'll regret it. No, I'm not going to regret it. I'm looking at my time, my talents, and what brings me joy, and they did not bring me joy anymore. I had to learn really quickly in the last week to be very firm with what makes me happy. I love my children, and I want to give them things that they would love. So I actually did not ask if they wanted any of this. But what I did ask was I asked them to make me a list of 10 things that made them happy. Excuse me. And they did. They made me a list. The eldest I'm still waiting on. I have one thing from her. But I want a list of 10 things that make you happy. And if you have adult children, I suggest that you do this. Make me a list of 10 things that make you happy and send them to me. I screenshotted them and kept them in a special album on my phone and shared them with my husband. And I told him specifically, we sat down and had a conversation. I don't want to give people things because I think they should have them. I don't want anybody to have to hold on to something because they think that I want them to keep it. I want to give them things that they will love and cherish and treasure that are on their list of what makes them happy. I learned a lot from two of my children of what makes them happy. And when I showed my husband, we looked it over and we were both like, wow, okay, there's the ideas of what we can get them when we want to love on them. So that's important. I don't want to burden anybody else with things that I think they should have. I want to support people in the passions that God has given them, because every single one of us, like I say in every video, every one of us has passions. We're all uniquely made in the image of God, but we're all uniquely made with different passions, different things that make us tick. And we need to celebrate every single one of those. So when I went through and I was cleaning my house, I expect you guys to do the same. Pick things up. If it's not on your list, you're going to have to justify to yourself why you're going to keep it. For me, I was pretty firm. If it's not on my list, I'm not keeping it. I did keep a little bit of yarn just for those moments where, you know, if I do really want to knit something. But I gotta tell you, I went through some of those knitting books that I had been holding on to, and I added up how many balls of yarn. I researched how much that ball of yarn was, added up how many balls for the jacket that I wanted to make, and it was $144. Just for the one yarn, not including everything else that I was going to need to buy for this jacket. And I took the little post-it note off and put the book in the bin that we're gonna turn them in. And I put the book in the donation pile and I said, that's it. I mean, I'm not a good knitter. If I want a jacket, I want it to fit properly. I want a good quality jacket. And if I'm going to spend $144 of yarn and then I have to spend the time away from my passion, then it's actually worth $200 for me to buy a jacket that I can try on, that fits perfectly, and that I can love and wear for years to come and be satisfied with it in the moment. It's not worth, because I will not get it done, it's not worth the actual buying the yarn with the hope of knitting the garment. I won't do it. And it will take away from my passion of what I want to do. So that's something that you really need to think about. Whenever you have a passion that you want to do, and if you don't fully enjoy it, why are you keeping it? And when you're giving something away, I literally prayed long and hard before I asked somebody, before I commented to somebody or contacted them and asked them if they wanted this. I really prayed long and hard, and it became very obvious that God was putting that person in my thought pattern. Most everybody has their stuff now. Some people I'm meeting up with in several days to give them their stuff. But I didn't contact anybody with the mundane parts because I didn't want to pass on my stuff to them. I didn't want to give them the same feeling that I had onto them. And when I handed something over to somebody, I made sure to tell them, no strings attached. If you do not like this, or you look at it in the next year or two, do not feel bad when you're getting rid of it. Give it to whoever you want. There's no strings attached. And I say that because, I'm not sure if I've said this before, but I say that because so many of the items that were in this room were given to me with the caveat of, oh, somebody gave this to me and I'm giving it to you so that you can make hats, or I'm giving this to you so that you can make items and donate to this organization. And the level of pressure that was put on me, that I now had to stop everything to create and make and then give to this organization, or to take up the hats that I had done, or the things that I had done, it takes away from the things that I love to do. Don't let somebody do that to you. If somebody hands you something, and even though you can do it, and they give you a condition of why they're giving it to you, politely say, thank you for thinking of me. I'm not going to be able to do that right now, and give it back to them. Because we should not be giving anything to anybody with conditions of how we're going to use it. That was not fair for me. It actually hindered me in a lot of happiness that I have lost and wasted. So I'm going to let you get going. We are going to have a couple more sessions on this. And the next one is a surprise.